In a wartime world of enigma and secrecy, this group of geniuses is tasked with breaking an unbreakable code. They navigate the treacherous landscape of World War II and races against time to save 14 million lives. Hello, welcome back to I Am Movies. Today we're diving into the 2014 thriller war movie called The Imitation Game. But before we jump into the details, make sure to show us some love by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Now let's get right into it. In 1951 in Manchester, England, a solitary man finds himself confined to an interrogation room. The stark visuals on the screen reveal a home torn apart, setting the stage for a gripping tale. As the narration unfolds, the man asserts his unexpected authority, emphasizing that the real control lies in the narrative he's about to share. Against the backdrop of a disheveled home, detectives Knock and Stachel venture into the mysterious case, discovering a seemingly untouched crime scene. Alan Turing, a brilliant mathematician and the owner of the raided residence, becomes the focal point of their inquiry. In the interrogation room, Turing demands a fair hearing, insisting that his story be heard in its entirety before any judgments are passed. As the interrogation commences, tensions rise. Turing, unyielding, challenges Detective Knock to delve into the intricacies of his past. The mathematician unveils a riveting account of his involvement in a covert group at Bletchley Park during the tumultuous days of World War II. Let's go back to London in 1939. A time when 800,000 kids were sent away from the city to stay safe in the countryside. Among them is 27-year-old Alan Turing, heading out on a train. But things take a turn as he arrives at MI6 headquarters, pretending to be part of Bletchley Radio Manufacturing. Alan, cool and not much for jokes, meets Commander Denniston. Denniston, checking out Alan's resume, thinks he's a genius, having written scientific papers at just 23. But Alan doesn't see himself as some kind of genius, comparing himself to Newton and Einstein, who did way more at his age. Denniston wonders why Alan wants to work for the British government when he doesn't speak German, a must for the job of decoding German messages. Alan, one of the world's best mathematicians, sees German codes as puzzles, not requiring language skills. When Denniston decides to send him away, Alan drops the word enigma, revealing he knows about the top-secret program. Enigma is a super-encrypted device that the Germans use for their major secrets. Alan sees it as the ultimate puzzle and believes cracking it could end the war. While everyone thinks Enigma is impossible to break, Alan becomes part of a team of code breakers focused on tackling the German Enigma machine, a device the Nazis used for sending supposedly unbreakable coded messages. The team includes Hugh Alexander, John Cairncross, Peter Hilton, Keith Furman, and Charles Richards. Their job is to analyze intercepted German messages, searching for patterns. The Enigma machine, however, is tricky. Its settings can change every day, making it a real puzzle. Surprisingly, the Germans were so confident in their code that they didn't bother hiding messages. Anyone with an AM radio could hear them. The catch was that only those with their own Enigma machine could understand the messages. The Germans used this method for sharing everything: secret attack plans, U-boat strikes, troop movements. Turing explains the enormity of the challenge, highlighting that there are so many possible settings that even if 10 people checked one setting every minute, it would take 20 million years to explore them all. However, working with Alan isn't easy for the other codebreakers. His social skills are lacking, and his belief that he's superior only makes things worse. Despite his brilliance with numbers, Alan distances himself from the group. Instead of joining their efforts to crack the daily codes, he focuses on creating a machine that can decipher Enigma messages every day, regardless of the machine's settings. In 1951, Detective Knock is determined to dig into Alan's past. Trying to access Alan's wartime records, he hits a roadblock. They're classified. This puzzles Knock. Why would a professor have top-secret war records? To uncover the truth, he switches Alan's name on an inquiry letter and heads to the Military Affairs Office, posing as someone from Foreign Affairs. Anticipating confidential war records, Knock eagerly opens the envelope he receives. To his frustration, it's empty. The idea that someone's records are classified is one thing, but the possibility that they've been deliberately destroyed confounds him even more. The mystery deepens, and Knock starts entertaining the notion that Alan might be a spy for Russia. The suspicion grows as Alan was at Cambridge simultaneously with two other individuals whose military files were similarly wiped clean. In 1939, Alan faces a hurdle when his team captain, Hugh, turns down his funding request for machine parts. Frustrated, Alan complains to Denniston, who hints that his co-workers aren't fans of him. Alan suggests firing them all and using the money for his machine, but the idea is dismissed. Determined, Alan learns that Winston Churchill is Denniston's boss. Writing a letter to Churchill, he sends Stewart to deliver it. Soon after, the team is surprised to find out that Alan has been put in charge of Churchill's orders. Alan takes swift action, firing 2 teammates for their shortcomings in code breaking and language skills. Short-staffed, he devises a crossword puzzle to find new talent. The nationwide search begins, and those who crack the puzzle are invited for a test. To everyone's surprise, solving it in less than 6 minutes earns a shot at joining the Enigma program. Stewart asks if it's possible, and Alan admits it took him 8 minutes to solve. However, Joanne, a woman in the group, raises her hand. Impressively, she solves the puzzle in just 5 minutes and 46 seconds. Alan and Stewart are amazed, leading to Joanne and another person being hired. Curious about her role, Joanne learns she'll be helping break an unbreakable Nazi code to win the war. Fast forward to 1940 at Bletchley Park, where a supercomputer is being set up in a secret hut. Alan becomes concerned when Joanne doesn't show up. Determined, he goes to her home, attempting to persuade her parents that she's crucial to the radio factory's decision to employ her. Joanne arrives, and in a private conversation, she reveals that her parents disapprove of her working and living among men. Alan suggests she work in the clerical department with other women, even if she won't actually be doing that kind of work. Surprisingly, Joanne agrees, and leaves with Alan, questioning why he's so fixated on helping her. Alan cryptically responds that, sometimes it's those whom no one expects anything from who do things no one can imagine. In 1951, Detective KNX shares with Superintendent Smith the unsettling discovery that Alan's classified military file is empty. Someone has burned and erased his war records. Suspicions arise, and they consider the possibility that Alan might be a Soviet spy. In 1940, Joan arrives at Bletchley Park, pretending to take on clerical work. Alan narrates the challenging times, describing how the British were starving, and the Germans consistently sank the food shipments sent by the Americans. The team's frustration peaks every midnight when the code resets, rendering their day's efforts useless. One day, a furious Hugh finds Alan working on his machine named Christopher, after Alan's childhood friend. Hugh, feeling the machine is worthless, attempts to destroy it with a wrench, but others intervene. Hugh argues there are legitimate ways to contribute to the war effort, citing Peter's relatives actively fighting while they have nothing to show for their work because of the machine. Alan remains steadfast, believing the machine will succeed. Alone in the hut, he discreetly takes Enigma messages, stashing them in his socks, and sneaks past guards at the checkpoint. Alan goes to Joan's home, climbing through her window. He reveals decrypted Enigma messages from the Nazi High Command, including one with Hitler's weather report. The next day, military police sifted through Alan's desk, suspecting a spy at Bletchley Park. Commander Deniston accuses Alan, pointing to intercepted messages to Moscow encrypted with a key phrase. Alan's arrogance, lack of attachments, and loner status make him a prime suspect. Deniston warns that treason could lead to hanging. Joan attempts to lift Alan's spirits, taking him to a beer hut. In a private conversation, she explains the challenges of being a woman in a man's job and emphasizes that no matter how smart Alan is, Enigma is smarter. She urges him to seek help, emphasizing that his team won't support him if they don't like him. The following day, taking Joanne's advice, Alan offers apples to his team and attempts to tell a joke, trying to bridge the gap between his brilliance and his colleagues' perceptions. Fast forward to 1941 at Bletchley Park, where Joanne and Alan bond over codes. Hugh Alexander suggests a wiring change for Christopher, making it 500 times faster. Alan puts the idea to use, turning Christopher into the first digital computer. As they wait for Christopher's results on the day's Enigma settings, war footage is shown in Deniston's office. The machine produces no results, surprising Alan, who barricades himself in the hut when Deniston arrives. The commander reveals Christopher hasn't broken Enigma, and the Home Office is upset over the 100,000 spent with no results. Deniston fires Alan, but Hugh, John, and Peter threaten to quit if he goes. Deniston grants 1 more month, and after that, he will end the program. The guys went for a beer to have a different atmosphere while they are drinking. Hugh tells Alan he cracked an encrypted message with a Bible quote, realizing Alan isn't the spy. After many days, Joanne interrupts Alan from working in her flat, solving equations to help Christopher. She reveals she must return home due to her parents' disapproval of her unmarried status. Alan suggests she get married, hinting at himself. He proposes with a wire ring, leading to an engagement party at the beer hut. As Joanne dances with Hugh, John talks to Alan, who claims that he is not ready to get married. But John surprisingly answers that he knows Alan is homosexual, which Alan instantly admits. John mentioned not to tell this to anyone since it is prohibited during that time, and Deniston is finding any way to stop the program. Fast forward to 1951, Alan finds himself in an interrogation with Detective Knock. The detective begins by asking if machines can think. Alan, acknowledging that the detective must have read his published work, points out that he's facing charges related to a personal matter, not computers. Alan shares his view that machines can never think like humans, but poses a question to the detective. Just because something thinks differently, does it mean it's not thinking? Drawing a parallel to human differences in taste and preferences, Alan argues that brains made of copper, wire, and steel can also think differently. The detective probes Alan about his paper, The Imitation Game, and Alan explains it's a test to distinguish between a machine and a human being. When asked about his wartime activities, Alan claims he worked at a radio factory. Detective Knock is skeptical and senses what we see. Back in 1942, Alan and his team eagerly waited for Christopher to crack the code. However, the midnight buzzer sounds, signaling that the machine won't be able to process so many possibilities within an 18-hour time frame. At the beer hut, Joanne's companion Helen catches the attention of Hugh. Alan joins them, and Hugh tries to charm Helen, mentioning that Alan believes men and women working together leads to romance. Hugh, despite this, expresses his personal belief in women's intelligence and equality. Helen agrees with Alan, revealing she has a crush on a male co-worker at the German radio tower, to which she knows that her crush has a girlfriend. Hugh steals Helen away to the bar, leaving Alan lost in thought. Alan calls out to Helen, asking why she thinks her crush has a girlfriend. Helen explains that every message begins with CLLY, assuming it's the name of his love. Alan enlightens her that Germans are instructed to choose 5 random letters to start each message. He adds that her crush uses the same 5 letters every time, revealing a potential vulnerability. In a moment of realization, Alan remarks that love might have just lost the Germans the entire war. A chase ensues as Alan rushes across Bletchley Park, evading guards and security checkpoints. In their hut, he pours out previously decrypted messages, explaining that Christopher doesn't have to search through every possible setting. The computer can look for settings that produce specific words they expect in the message. They test their theory on a 6 a.m. weather report, noting that it always ends in H for Hitler. Christopher comes to a stop and they take the letters it produces back to the Enigma machine. Typing in the same letters, they successfully decode a message indicating they've cracked the code. The team works tirelessly throughout the night, decoding messages, translating decryptions, and producing a map that represents the locations of all their ships against the Axis ships. In a tense moment, John reveals that there are 5 people in the room, who know the position of every ship in the Atlantic. Joanne realizes that the Germans are about to attack a British passenger convoy positioned just 20 minutes away. Hugh attempts to call Deniston to warn him, but Alan intervenes, ripping the phone out of the wall. A heated argument ensues, and Alan argues that they must allow the U-boats to sink the convoy to avoid tipping off the Germans about their success in cracking Enigma. Alan emphasizes that if they interfere, the Germans will change their communication methods immediately, putting their efforts to win the war in jeopardy. The difficult decision forces them to accept the potential loss of hundreds of innocent lives. Peter, realizing his brother is on one of the convoys, demands that they at least alert Deniston about that specific ship. Alan, unyielding, apologizes, asserting that they are the ones who decide who lives and who dies. Alan and Joan ride the train to London and meet with Stuart Menzies in a tea shop. They disclose their success in breaking Enigma, and seek Menzies' help in determining which intelligence to act on and which attacks to stop. Menzies can create believable sources to avoid suspicion from the Germans. Back at Bletchley Park, tensions rise as Peter harbors animosity towards Alan for letting his brother be killed, despite the advance warning. In a confrontation, Alan notices John's Bible marked to Matthew 7:7. Alan realizes that John is a Soviet spy. In private, John reveals that the Soviets and Britain are on the same side, but threatens to expose Alan's homosexuality and destroy his work if he reveals John's secret. Fearing interception, Alan tries to call Menzies, but knows his calls are monitored and hangs up. Returning to Joanne's flat, he is surprised to see Stuart inside. Stuart then reveals that Joanne is in military prison as she is a Soviet spy, and Enigma messages are found in her possession. Alan confesses that he provided her with the intercepts when they were working together to crack the code. Stuart reveals to Alan that Deniston is searching for a spy in their hut, and Alan discloses that the spy is John. Stuart admits to placing them there to leak information to Stalin. He seeks Alan's help in determining what to leak to John and the Soviets. Alan, feeling trapped, demands Joanne's release. Stuart admits lying about her being in military prison, but threatens to use Enigma messages against her if Alan doesn't cooperate. Alan encourages Joanne to leave Bletchley, revealing he's homosexual to push her away. Joanne, however, insists on staying, expressing her determination against societal expectations. In 1951, the interrogation by Detective Knock continued. Alan challenges the detective to play the imitation game, questioning if he's a machine, a person, a war hero, or a criminal. Detective Knock struggles to judge Alan, who reflects on his past. 6 months after the interrogation, Alan is congratulated. However, the detective reveals that Alan has been sentenced for indecency and homosexuality. During a visit, Joanne offers support, willing to testify on Alan's behalf. Alan, shaken, discloses that the judge gave him a choice: a prison or a weekly estrogen treatments aimed at curing his homosexuality. This revelation puts his work and Christopher's fate in jeopardy. Over the past decade, Joanne has been a comforting presence for Alan during his struggles. One day, he experiences a panic attack and Joanne helps him calm down. Noticing her wedding ring, Alan learns about her husband. Joanne suggests doing a crossword puzzle for old time's sake, but the hormonal treatment has affected Alan's ability, leaving him unable to complete it. He laments that she got what she wanted: a work husband, a semblance of a normal life. Joanne counters, expressing gratitude for the extraordinary life they've led because of Alan. Reflecting on the impact of their work, Joan shares moments where the world changed because of Alan's contributions. She believes the world is better precisely because Alan wasn't normal. Alan questions if she truly believes that, and Joan asserts that sometimes those underestimated achieve unimaginable things. Years later, Alan is alone in his home, gazing at Christopher, the supercomputer, and the love of his life. He turns off the lights, prompting a flashback to when all of them burns all evidence of cracking Enigma. It is revealed that Alan took his own life in 1954 after a year of government-mandated hormonal therapy. In 2013, Queen Elizabeth II granted a posthumous royal pardon to honor Alan's achievements. Historians estimate that breaking Enigma shortened the war by over 2 years, saving over 14 million lives. The government kept Turing's work a secret for more than 50 years, but it inspired generations of research into what we call now computers. If you'd like to see us recap any other movies or topics you have in mind, just drop a comment and let us know. And don't forget to hit the like button, share this recap, and subscribe to stay updated for the next one. Until next time.